Wolf, good to be back. Israel will take whatever measures are necessary to defend its citizens. As of tonight, Wolf, there are 4.5 million Israelis under rocket fire. That's more than half the population of the country. I was on this program last night on Situation Room. Since then, they've fired 240 rockets out of Gaza at our citizens. One of those rockets, as you heard Fred mention, killed 3 adults last night, wounded 2 infants. We have about 150 casualties so far. So we're going to take any measures necessary to stop this rocket fire and to protect our citizens, including the possibility of ground action. There have been reserves have been called up, but we hope we don't have to get there. We hope that Hamas will internalize the strong message we sent and that they'll step down.
Is there any indication that's happening?
On the contrary, they're escalating. Just this afternoon, they fired rockets that hit in the vicinity of Tel Aviv. And you and I remember the last time rockets hit in Tel Aviv, and 20 years ago during the Gulf War, the first Gulf War, they were fired from Iraq. This is the first time rockets that have been fired from Gaza hitting in the vicinity of Tel Aviv.
It was south of Tel Aviv.
South of Tel Aviv, and though the Prime Minister, as you mentioned, Prime Minister Netanyahu, was in a bomb shelter.
Now, he was in one of these towns where a rocket hit? Is that what you're saying?
Well, as a precaution, they moved the Prime Minister down. He was in Tel Aviv at the time.
And so what happened?
Well, they moved him into a bomb shelter. He went down to a bomb shelter. But it shows you that the
Prime
Minister of Israel has to go into a bomb shelter. Imagine if the President of the United States had to go into the bomb shelter. Imagine if what the equivalent would be in the United States, 150 million Americans were under rocket fire. What kind of steps the United States would take to ensure the safety of its citizens? Those are the type of steps that we are going to have to take to ensure the safety of our citizens.
So right now, just to be precise, there's no letting up at all. The Hamas attacks continuing. Israel is launching airstrikes, also from the sea, strikes into Gaza. But so far, no Israeli ground troops have moved into Gaza.
So far, no. And again, we hope we not have to reach that point. We want Hamas to internalize the hard message, to step down, stop firing rockets at millions of Israelis.
I read a tweet from a spokesman for the Israel Defense Forces that said this: we recommend that no Hamas operatives, whether low-level or senior leaders, show their faces above ground in the days ahead. Are you targeting right now more Hamas leaders? You killed the head of the Hamas military command yesterday.
Well, certainly it's our right and our duty to protect our citizens and to protect our citizens from those terrorist leaders who are shooting hundreds and, over the course of months, thousands of rockets at our citizens.
You know that innocent civilians, though, Palestinians, are dying in the process. We've been getting these horrible stories, including an 11-month-old son of a BBC journalist who was killed in one of these Israeli strikes.
Well, we deeply regret any loss of civilian life, and we take extraordinary measures to avoid them. We had one report of an Israeli pilot who had targeted a long-range missile and then aborted his mission because he saw there were children in the vicinity. One of those missiles hit outside of Tel Aviv today, so we pay a price. But let's be honest, we're facing an enemy that is shielding itself behind its own civilian population. They're firing these rockets from inside schools, inside playgrounds, even inside mosques. And that's the difference between us. They're trying to maximize the number of Israeli civilians they kill, and they hope that we'll kill civilians on their side.
Are you familiar with this 11-month-old child of this
I'm
BBC?
familiar with the case.
It's a very sad story, obviously.
It's a terrible story. But we are doing our utmost to try to avoid this. Keep in mind, Hamas has not just a military strategy, it has a media strategy.
Do you know who the target in that attack was?
I do not, but it was near an asset, near a missile site. And we, again, doing our utmost to avoid these casualties. They have been low. In fact, most of the casualties on the Palestinian side have been armed terrorists.
Because you've been to Gaza, I've been to Gaza. This is one of the most densely populated areas in the world. What, about 1.5 million Palestinians in a very, very small area. If you move in there with tanks, artillery, there are going to be a lot of innocent civilians who are going to be dead.
Again, we hope not to reach that point. We don't want to inflict any civilian casualties. They are doing their utmost to inflict the maximum number of casualties on our side. They're trying their best to kill Israeli civilians. We're trying to avoid harming Palestinian civilians. That's the difference between a democratic state and a terrorist organization.
I know the Prime Minister Netanyahu, who was down in a bunker today for himself, has been on the phone with the President of the United States. That was yesterday. Have they communicated today as well?
Not today directly, but the message from the White House, from Congress, from both parties, has been unequivocal support for Israel's right to defend itself and condemnation of Hamas terror.
Here's what really worries me as well, the collapse of the Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. I witnessed the signing of that peace treaty in 1979. You remember, you've written books about it. Is the Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty, they have now pulled their ambassador out of Tel Aviv, you've pulled your ambassador out of Cairo. Is that peace treaty between Israel and Egypt on the verge of collapse?
Well, the Egyptian-Israeli peace is vital not just for Israel and Egypt, it's vital for the entire region, for the world. We understand this. We think that the Egyptians understand this full well. And the Egyptians have played a constructive role in the past, mediating with Hamas. I think they can play the similar role today.
Are they?
I think they can.
You think they, but are they?
That's all I can say right now is I think they can play a constructive role, and we hope they will.
But that suggests to me they're not yet doing that.
Well, right now, the situation is very fluid on the ground, and Hamas shows every intention of escalating further.